All right, guys, Darren from FBA Elite, and welcome back to another video. So in this week's video, we're going to be taking a look at how much money do you really need to start an Amazon FBA business in 2022. And this video is based on content from the course that we offer. So this is actually paid content available for free to you guys in this video. And if you are interested in the course that we offer, you can check that out at fbaelite.teachable.com. So this video is split into two parts. We have the startup costs, which are essential for everyone. And in the second part, I'm going to show you a product comparison between 3 different products to give you an idea of how much or how little you could spend depending on the type of product that you're looking to launch. So let's kick things off with the startup costs. So on here, we have 2 columns. We have the recommended column and then the low budget column, and you can make your own decision as to which one is the right fit for you, your budget, and the goals for your business. So the first thing is actually registering your limited company. Now the cheapest option, you can do this directly with the HMRC. It will cost you around £12, which you pay directly to the HMRC. Now I personally usually use a formation company, so they pretty much do the same thing, but often their interface is easier to use, and the additional money that you do invest, you'll get some extras for. So lots of them will offer different packages. The one I use, they print and bind the certificate of incorporation and post that to you. So I'm happy to pay a few extra pounds for that. But certainly the low cost option of going directly with the HMRC is absolutely fine. I actually recently did that for one of my other businesses. The next thing is a business bank account. Now, the most important thing with your business bank account is that it's one that Amazon is happy to work with. Now, most of them should be fine, but I'd recommend whichever bank you're considering going with, just go onto Google, put the name of the bank plus Amazon into Google and see what comes up on the seller forums to see if anyone's ever had any issues with that bank working with Amazon. I personally use HSBC, but if I was starting from scratch again, I would probably use one of the online providers that are a lot cheaper and have a lot more services. So for example, you have companies such as Starling Bank, Revolut, Monzo, etc. There are lots to choose from, but make sure you do your research first to ensure they will be compatible with Amazon FBA. So some of these newer options, the new digital banks, are cheaper, so you may be able to do that on the low budget option, but certainly your high street banks, if you do go with someone like HSBC, there may be a promotional period in the first year or two where you don't pay very much at all, but then they'll start to hit you with quite high monthly fees for what is effectively a very basic bank account. Up next, you have your Amazon account. Now, some people like to start with an individual account and upgrade at a later date. I personally just go straight in with the professional account. So that's why I recommend it, because you're going to be wanting to use a professional account for your FBA business. So that's going to be £30 a month. It's £25 a month plus the VAT. So that's recommended for both the recommended option and the low budget option. But if you really do want to save a few pounds before you actually start selling, you can sign up with the individual plan. But I would probably just go straight in with the pro account at £30 per month. We then have logo design, which you can get done on somewhere like Fiverr.com. You can look through all of the designers on there. You can look through their portfolios to see the type of logos they've designed in the past. And then you give them a brief of the type of logo you're looking to design. And usually if you spend £25, you'll get between 1 to 3 designs, which is great if you're on the low budget option. Or if you're happy to spend a bit more, if you spend say £50, you'll probably get 3 to 5 designs to choose from. So very straightforward, and Fiverr I use quite a lot for all of these types of tasks, many of which I'll come back to later in this video. Next up, we have barcodes, and I get a lot of questions about barcodes. Do we still need to use GS1 barcodes? Now, I'm still using this as the recommended option, mainly because it's what I do based on what I've done in the past. However, realistically, if you only plan to sell on Amazon, then I would go the GTIN exemption route, which will cost you absolutely nothing. You don't have to renew the GTIN like you used to in the past, and it also applies at the category level. So if you get GTIN exemption for a particular category, you can launch multiple products in that category, and you don't have to apply for GTIN exemption every time you launch a new product. So GTIN exemption is definitely the route to go if you only plan to sell on Amazon. If you plan to sell on other marketplaces, then definitely go the GS1 route instead. We then have trademark, which is £170, and that includes 1 class. Now you can apply for more than 1 class, and that will cost you extra. One thing to keep in mind is you cannot add additional classes at a later date. So if you're planning to sell in multiple niches and want to have multiple classes protected, make sure you include that in your original application, because you cannot bolt them on at a later date. Now I do have 0 as the low budget option. You don't have to have a trademark, but without trademark, you cannot get brand registry, and without brand registry, you lose a lot of protection that you're going to need if you become a successful Amazon FBA seller. So if you are going to start your business, despite the fact you don't have to do it, I would strongly recommend paying out the $170 to get your trademark application in. And the same applies for business insurance. It's not essential, but it's highly, highly recommended. A typical plan will cost you around about £400, probably a bit more than that at the moment, for a good FBA insurance. I've recently spoken to the FBA specialists that I know in the insurance world, and there's been a number of changes, so it is becoming more difficult to find insurers for this, but certainly take it out when you start selling. So you don't have to take it out straight away, but as soon as you start selling on Amazon, make sure you take out business insurance to protect yourself in case someone finds a way of either hurting themselves or others with your product. So you want to be protected from that if that does happen. Next thing we have is your accountant, and on there I've also got including Xero, but that could be other accountancy software such as QuickBooks, but personally I use Xero. Now you don't have to pay for an accountant straight away, you can look at that after your first year is up, but many accountants will charge you the same whether you sign up day one or at the end of the year. So for example, my accountant, if I sign up and I pay them £100 every single month, it's going to cost me £1,200 for the year. Or if I paid them at the end of the year, it's going to cost me £1,200 anyway. So they always recommend signing up day one, because then they can provide support throughout the year. So you benefit by getting the additional 12 months of support that you're effectively paying for anyway, but you're not taking advantage of if you don't pay until the end of the year. So I would budget that approximately for a decent Amazon accountant. And don't just go with a general accountant for this. You want to know someone who knows the Amazon FBA world inside out, because it can be quite complicated from an accountancy perspective. And following on from that, we have Link My Books. Now, Link My Books is essential, I would say, despite the fact it's not there on the low budget option. It is the connector between something like Xero or QuickBooks and Amazon. So the reports that Amazon generate aren't overly helpful from an accountancy perspective. So you need something like Link My Books that puts into a usable format for something like QuickBooks or Xero. So it makes things such as your VAT returns every quarter much easier, as it can generate the correct invoices that go into your accountancy software. So Link My Books is essential. We then have a domain name and email. This is optional, so some people do want to have sales at mydomain or mybusiness.com, depending on what company name you choose. I've recently just started using Gmails for this and just set up a folder. So I buy the domain name, which might cost me about £10 for a couple of years. And then I use a free folder, so I can still get sales at my domain or support at mydomain.com or .co.uk. And I just forward that to my Gmail address and I use that. But really, with actual Amazon customers, I send, well, basically none. I don't send any direct emails to my customers, as everything has to be done directly through the Amazon messaging system. So you can't email them directly. So you can certainly go and buy your domain and have expensive email if you want, but it certainly is not essential. We then have software. So I've got Helium 10 as the recommended software that I use. You're going to need software for your Amazon FBA business. There are lots of options out there. My personal preference is Helium 10. It covers all areas. So you've got tools for product research to help you find the product, so you can see estimated sales, which I've covered in many previous videos. Also got tools to help you with your keyword research, which will help with your setting up your PPC campaigns and your listing optimization. There's tools for tracking your organic and sponsored ranks, so you can see how your product launch is performing and how your PPC is performing. You've got the alert system, so you can actually monitor your listing for hijackers, if there's any changes to the listing. Whether Amazon have remeasured your product and put you into a different fulfillment pricing category. They also include a free course in that price as well, and there's lots of other tools, so definitely check that out. And that is £70 per month. There's 2 discount codes you can use there. So you've got 50% off there with FBA Elite 50, and that will get you 50% off your first month, or 10% off with FBA Elite 10, and that will get you 10% off every single month. So that's great for long-term use, or if you definitely want to use it for a whole year, use either one of those codes and you'll get 25% off of the annual plan. If you want to go the cheapest option, the free Helium 10 plan allows you to launch X-Ray 50 times, so you can research up to 50 products for free per month. And then finally, training. You of course can get your training for free on YouTube by being subscribed to me and many other people. So this training at the moment is absolutely free. But like I said, this is part of the FBA Elite training course, which is available at $4.99, and that covers the complete FBA journey from start to finish and will help you get up and running with your Amazon FBA business. So those are your startup costs. As you can see, if you go the low budget option, you can start your FBA business, excluding products, for less than £100. But products are where the real money come in. And on this next slide, we're going to be comparing 3 different products. So we've got high cost product, medium cost, and low cost product. And I'll talk you through these, and these will give you some good examples of what potentially you could be spending depending on the type of products you choose. So for any product that you look to launch, you're going to be wanting to order some product samples. Now I've got 3 options here. We've got the high cost one here, and I've got multiple samples and competitor products. So what do I mean by that? Well, instead of just going on to Alibaba.com, finding suppliers and getting samples sent to you, before you do that, I recommend going on to Amazon.co.uk or whatever your local marketplace is, and then ordering samples from the top sellers that are going to be selling products that are directly competing to the product that you're looking to launch. By getting their products in your hand, you'll very quickly know how to enhance those products. You'll be able to spot any issues with them. You'll know who you're competing with. And then when you do go to these suppliers on Alibaba, you'll have a much more refined specification to give them, which will save you money in the long run with the amount of samples you'll be getting from the Alibaba suppliers. So it's certainly worth always ordering samples from Amazon first before going to Alibaba. So if you do go the high cost route, which is what I usually end up doing, I usually end up buying between 3 to 5 products from Amazon, then quite a few samples from Alibaba, normally 2 rounds of samples as well. So I'll get initial samples and some refinement, and then a final sample as well. And I'll usually use that final sample for photography. You can spend anything up to £500 or more depending on the size and weight of the product. The medium cost option, of course, is ordering a few less samples from both Amazon and a few less samples from Alibaba. And then the low cost option, if you're selling a product which is very, very small, light and cheap, then you may be able to keep your sample costs quite low, as it won't cost your supplier a lot to package up one of their samples and send it over to you. We then have photography, so depending on how complicated you want to be, if you've got a product that needs location shoots, so for example, I've talked about the bootliner products I've talked about in the past, we had to go to a local park. I hired a photographer for the day, he brought all of his equipment, we went to the park and we did a location shoot, spent a good 3-4 hours there, then he took it back to his studio and did some studio shots as well. So you could easily spend £500. If you've got a product that doesn't require location shoots, and it might only cost you a couple £100, or if you feel confident yourself and you've got good lighting and decent photography equipment and skills, then potentially you could do it yourself. Or sometimes suppliers may be able to supply photography as well, so have a chat with them about that. Just ensure that it isn't the same photos that every other competitor is using in that niche. You then have packaging design, so this could cost you anything from £0. Sometimes your supplier can do this for you for free. Or if you want to get your custom design done on Fiverr or something, then you could spend £25 or £50 depending on what the level is you want to go for. And the same applies to your product insert as well. Depending on how advanced and how well designed you want it to be, it can range from anything from free up to £50 or even more, depending on how much you want to spend on the designer. Now the 3D render I've got here at £25, as that's what I spent in the past when I got a 3D render done of one of my products. But actually, something to keep in mind is sometimes you can use this as an alternative to photography. So recently, someone that I mentor on the FBA Elite forums, the product that they were looking to launch looked much, much better as a render. So we got all 7 of their images rendered. It worked out a lot cheaper than photography, and the renders looked really, really good. So sometimes renders can be complementary to the photos, but in other instances, renders might actually be better and can be the actual photos you use on Amazon. Now, technically, the terms of service say that the photos you use on Amazon should be actual photos of the product, but often these renders are so photorealistic that it shouldn't be a problem at all to use those. So keep that in mind with the product that you're looking to launch. You then have the bulk order. So this is going to be your largest expenditure. And I've got in brackets there, budget for 2 batches of stock. So the last thing you want to do is get a successful product. You're selling really well, but you don't have enough money to order that second batch of inventory. Now with the lead times, getting a product manufactured, shipped over to Amazon, then processed into stock can be anything from 4 weeks up to 12 weeks or longer. It's important that you budget for 2 batches of stock so that if the first batch is going really well, you can order that second batch and hopefully get it to arrive before you run out of stock, or there isn't a huge period between the first batch going out of stock and the second batch arriving. The longer the gap is, the more it will cost you with the relaunch of that product. So that's why I say always budget for 2 batches of stock, as that is pretty much what I always have to do with all the products that I sell. I'm always invested almost in 2 batches of stock at any one time. And there's some examples there. So if you've got 500 units at £6, it might cost you £3,000. If you've got 400 units at £4.50, it'll cost you £1,800, or 300 units at £3.33 is approximately £1,000. So depending on the sales volume of the product that you're looking to sell, take a look at these figures to get an idea of what you'd be looking to do. So if you were launching a product that was selling maybe 100 units per month, then this might be absolutely fine, as you want to buy 300 units, so you've got enough for 2 to 3 months of stock. So always think about how much inventory you need to cover at least 2 months of sales, preferably 3 months, somewhere between 2 to 3 months of inventory you want to order at any one time. You then have transaction fees. So if you're not overly confident in the supplier that you're using, then you might want to pay on your credit card through Alibaba, and that will cost you 2.95% on the credit card fee. And I think Alibaba will also hit you with a transaction fee on top of that as well. So keep an eye out for that. Another option is to use TransferWise, which is what I use for all of my payments, and that will vary depending on the value of the transfer. So based on this, £1,800, 0.35% is £6.30, but this will vary depending on the actual transfer amount. Then finally, BACS, if, for example, they have a bank account in the UK, or you have an account that allows you to make foreign payments without any issues, or without any payments being charged, then that will cost you £0. I would always recommend paying to the bank account details that are shown on the Alibaba Trade Assurance page, as you can still get trade assurance by using BACS or TransferWise, providing you're using the correct bank account. So you don't have to pay on credit card to get trade assurance protection. You then have shipping and insurance. Now these figures are probably very, very low at the moment based on the current rate, but it gives you an idea depending on how big the products are. You might spend £1,000 on insurance, or like me, my last shipment cost me, I think, £4,000, or you might spend £500 or £0, but it very much depends on the size of the shipment. And if you're wondering how can you spend £0, maybe you found a small and light product and the unit cost that your supplier's given you at £3.33 is DDP shipping, so that includes all of the shipping, customs duty and VAT. So your low cost option with your low cost product, potentially shipping could be included, whereas generally the more expensive ones you're going to be paying for shipping separately. So you'll have your unit cost plus your shipping and insurance cost, and then when it arrives at the UK ports, you're also going to be paying customs duty and VAT as well. So I put 5% for customs duty, but it varies depending on the type of product you're importing, and VAT is currently at 20% as well. So it gives you some examples of what potentially you could be paying depending on the value of the shipment and the value of the shipping and insurance as well. Product inspection, I've got a few options there. So maybe you want to pay out for a live inspection, so you can actually be there on WhatsApp video calls or something like that, and actually be there with the inspector when they're going through the products. So that might be your more expensive option, or it might be a standard option where you've outsourced a job for the inspection. They go and do the inspection, then report back to you, or you might decide not to do the inspection. One thing to keep in mind, and it's something that's just happened with my business insurance, is my business insurers have changed and said you have to have your product inspected now. So keep an eye out for the T&Cs of your business insurance. We then have sponsored ads. So depending on how much sales velocity you need to achieve and the niche you're in and how much it's going to cost to bid in that niche, it's all going to vary massively. But some examples here based on spending £5 will generate 1 sale. So in this niche, we need to generate 15 units sales per day. That would cost £75. In this niche, we only need to generate 10 units per day. So that's £50. And in this niche, we only need to sell 5 units per day, and that's £25. So it shows you how PPC costs can vary massively depending on the sales velocity you're trying to achieve, and also dependent on what actual bids you need to place in the niche. Now, most of the products I see people launch, they end up bidding between £1 to £2 per click, but I've just worked with someone who was spending between £4 and £5 per click. So sponsored ads and PPC can really have a huge impact on your overall cost. And then at the bottom there, we have some totals just for the product comparison. So this excludes some startup costs. You can see there, you can spend anything up to £8,000 for these slightly kind of more high expensive. You can spend anything up to £8,000 for this higher, more expensive product, all the way down to £1,600 for these cheaper products. So hopefully from looking at the startup cost and the product comparison cost there, you get some good ideas of potentially what you might need to invest to start an Amazon FBA business. If you found this video useful, I'd really appreciate it. You can hit that like button. If you want to see more from me, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you check out the FBAelite.com forums and resources. They are completely free. Also, we have the FBA Elite Amazon training course, which is what this video is based on. So this gives you an idea of the type of content you will see within the course. And if you want to use Helium 10, make sure you use these discount codes: 50% off your first month with FBA Elite 50, or 10% off every month with FBA Elite 10, or use either code for a 12-month plan to get 25% off for the year. Now what I'm going to do is going to pop up a video in front of me, which is basically a cheat sheet for Amazon FBA. It's a full checklist to ensure that when you start an Amazon FBA business, you cover every step, and I recommend you guys give that a watch.